I just want to thank you so much for being here at 4:30 today. Well, you are survivors. You really want to be here. You're in the wrong place. You're my friend. Or maybe this is really cool. Maybe you want to know about it. But thank you. Welcome here. I can't even talk. My name is Jerry Phelps. I'm the clinical director at UC San Diego Counseling and Psychological Services, and this is my co-presenter.
I'm Irma Murphy, and I'm a clinical social worker at UC San Diego.
So we're going to be presenting to you this sort of bold statement. I made this up at the end of the day. I was like writing the thing, and I'm like, whoa. And then I did it, and I went, what did I just say? Can I change the title? No, I can't change the title. But we're going to talk about a clinical triage system today. And we're going to talk about it in a few different ways. Can you all hear me, by the way?
Yes.
Good. All right, thank you. I'm going to talk about sort of the structure, how we went about this, how we thought about it, why we did it, some of the outcomes, sort of the change management process as well. And Irma is going to talk about the actual clinical triage system that we have, and so we're gonna intersperse sort of a little bit of the how, but in the middle, so you can see sort of how we do this at UC San Diego. But I also want to talk about sort of the implications of this, pros and cons, and because we've done this for about 3 years, and and why is this in the technology track? I mean, there are all these really cool things like 7 Cups. They got big startup companies and stuff because we use the telephone. Now, people say, this is a telemental health initiative, and they say, what do you mean it's a telemental health? I'm like, it's the telephone. Telemental health. That's a technology. That's a thing. I mean, it's kind of an old technology, and some of our students don't like to talk on the phone very much, which is a little bit of an issue for this. But it is a technology program, and there are some implications for it being a technology program, both pros and cons. But it is our largest telemental health initiative to date. Let me see. Let me get this. Why do we do this? I'm going to start my timer here. So, why did we change? Well, we changed for a lot of reasons. We changed because we had to. We were just being. We call our intakes initial evaluations now, but we have long wait times. Our referrals are taking a long time, and our providers are not really used to, we're having trouble with referrals. I got to do a referral. What's that? Our urgent care service, really one of our main problems was our urgent care service was really backed up, and I think it was kind of backed up because we were backed up in our initial evaluations. And so people were just waiting, and they just walked in. We call our crisis service urgent care. We have a brief model, as many or most of you do. We don't keep our students for long term, and students would wait, and then they would come in, and then we'd wait 4 weeks, and then we'd say, we're gonna have to refer you to someone else after a long intake. And that, I think, created some satisfaction problems. I mean, literally they'd wait for 8 weeks, the entire quarter for an appointment. Our enrollment was increasing and is increasing at UCSD, and we're a growing campus. And as you all are all aware, our nationwide increases in mental health concerns, and no new staff are on the horizon. This just gives you sort of where our enrollment was. We started the BTA system in 2016, 2017. So we could see the writing on the wall, the trends going, and we got a new chancellor, and our new chancellor is sort of a growth person, and let's admit people before we create the infrastructure. So we were kind of pinched for that. This is just another thing for enrollment. So we wanted to create a service that it works efficiently and effectively and has satisfied customers and supports our team members, and that wasn't really happening. We wanted to continue this though and try something new. So we all have this goal UC-wide of keeping our wait times for initial evaluation below 10 business days. We wanted our CAP staff to, we wanted a system. We didn't want to change things before everybody knew about it, understood it, was satisfied with the system. We didn't want to provide a service that was low quality. We wanted to provide a high quality service, and we wanted to continue to do what we did with. We do a lot of consultation, as you all do, with our campus partners. So I want to talk about the change management process because changing a system has ripple effects. It's a process, and so you can't just change something and hope we know about change. And I'm preaching to the choir, but from a systemic level, both from an internal level for CAPS and a level of the university, change does have effects on systems, and so we've got to be very careful. So we did survey our staff and ask them for changes. We then created a team. Probably many of you have done this, but we tried to involve everybody in that team, and we tried to involve people who were the most vocal that it wasn't working, things aren't working, so come on into the team. So we had all levels of our service, from the initial front desk to our psychiatry to our clinical social worker and psychologists and business managers. So we had everybody involved in that. And if you're going to do this, something like this, you're going to change a big system, I think you should do that. I think you should involve everybody. And of course, we do all those iterations and things, but evaluating, getting feedback, it's not perfect. We got to keep working on it. But external marketing to the stakeholders is really important. As you know, people expect something from us, and if it changes, they want to know exactly what it is, and so that's really key. So I'll talk about that, and highlight the positives, and don't minimize the negatives. Just plan for them. Here's some results of our survey. Our staff said, "Hey, we need a triage system." So this was great. They said we wanted it. They wanted session limits. We wanted a group coordinator. We wanted more referral management. These are the things that were a problem 3 years ago. We need more clinical staff, help with case management, and things like that. So we said, let's do it. And it was, we're changing everything in the summer. So here, you're probably doing the same thing, making these changes over the summer, implementing them. We reviewed all these papers and surveys and things. We had discussions, and then we beta tested that, and we decided to go for what we called a brief telephone assessment. We didn't call it a triage system. Naming and framing, of course, it creates a certain set of expectations. And so if you talk about a triage system, a lot of people don't know what that means. And so we called it a brief telephone assessment to say it's brief, it's on a telephone, and it's assessment. It's not an intake. We're not intaking them, but we're evaluating, helping them decide which is the best place for them. And I think it really fits with all of the new options we have for our students, all the new care options. We have groups and workshops, and we have all these new technology things that are coming online. And the BTA system can be a really great way to help sort through that. And assign the right thing to that client, or suggest the right thing, or suggest or push out certain things that we'd like to. TAO, we're promoting TAO or WellTrack, or our workshops. So and can match that. It's a HIPAA compliant conversation, so everything that is discussed is confidential. It's a verbal agreement for that, but it allows the student to talk with somebody relatively quickly. And for us, when we had a 4-week, 3-week wait, we're able to talk to them within 0 to 3 days for our BTA system. So, but we have to have we knew we had to have a scope of services document, a scope of services declaration. We had to say this is what we do and this is what we don't do. And we had to have an internal one. So we have an internal one, and we had a sort of an external or external facing one. And so, and for our key stakeholders, we sort of talked about that more directly, what were our refer in and refer out criteria. But it just helps set up the expectation of what we can provide and what we can't provide. And then we decided, hey, the intake shouldn't be an intake because it just could be an initial evaluation. And we may change that now that everybody's doing single session, so we may change that too. Because we're thinking about doing that, well, we are going to do that. So I'm just going to briefly talk about what it is, and in a few moments, I'm going to hand it over to Irma, and she's going to walk you through our process so you can kind of get to see what it's like. But it's pretty simple. It's a phone call to our system is a phone system. We're a decentralized model. We have a central office, but we have many decentralized offices. So we have a pretty small central office, a pretty small waiting room. We really try to encourage phone contacts as the first contact, just so we don't get overwhelmed. So the front desk identifies us as not a crisis, as not an urgent, or they kick it to the urgent care provider who can I do a brief triage there, and then schedules the appointment. And these are the things that we do, just basic stuff. Talk about risk, what's the urgency of it. We tell them what kind of scope of services we do, and we ask them, what do they want? What's their presenting problem, and what do you want? And it allows them to say that in a safe place with a licensed provider, within a short period of time of them wanting to make that call. So hopefully within 0 or 1 day or 0 to 2 days, and then we refer inside or outside or some other things, and I have some data on that. Yeah.
I just have a question. What questions does the front desk staff ask them to identify whether or not they're low risk or high risk?
That's a good question. They don't. Is this something that's urgent? Are you in crisis? They don't ask very many questions. Right. They are not clinical staff, so if they get into any clinical issues, they will say, how about we have you talk to one of our counselors, and they'll patch them to our urgent care provider who will screen them at that point if there's any sense of urgency. And if they're high risk, we bring them right in. We ask them to come right in. We say, please come in, walk in. We ask them to walk in and tell them that we have that service. We have a walk-in service that's for crises, and if you'd like to walk in, if this is a crisis, this is something that we can't wait. I can't quite think of the words that we actually have written, but that's what we do. Yeah.
Well, one clarification thing for urgent care, is that like urgent care, like medical urgent care, or is it mental health specific urgent care?
It's mental health, by the way. We're changing the name because it is confusing. It's been urgent care for a very long time, and it's been a year-long thing. I've been trying to change the name. But yes, it is our crisis service
My other
for mental health.
Is I was curious, because one thing I routinely done with our texting youth is an aversion to talking on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you've encountered?
Yes, we do. So we offer walk-in services. We say you can walk in to make an appointment, or you can call on the phone. We suggest that they call on the phone, but they can walk in.
They can also schedule a brief assessment, taking telephone out in person, but it'll still be in the same context as it being a brief assessment.
Yeah, so we'll do it. So it'll be a brief assessment in the same role with one of our providers. It'll just be face-to-face. Yeah. Sorry.
Just a quick clarification
Yeah.
question. So if student calls, interacts with the front desk transfers them to urgent care, you spoke about it in terms of screening. Is it a screening to determine if it's a BTA, or does the screening become the BTA?
It's a good question, and the evolution of this is that we allow it to become a BTA. So then all our providers are sort of trained in this model. So the urgent BTA it reduces one more door. So good question.
That way they're not duplicating the same thing.
Yeah, we don't want to
There's
reschedule
some
them
flexibility
again.
in urgent care.
They've already said, here's what I want, and then that provider then uses the same form and labels it urgent, and then just uses the same form. It's a triage form. If you have it if you use point and click, it's the triage form that we use. For those of you who are in CAPS. So we did have to plan, this is just a long, complicated slide. It's just, we just did projections. So we had to plan, how many of these are we going to do? So we just projected, we just projected based on past data, our weeks. And you can see, it's kind of interesting to see the week 125 people versus week 4, 25 people. It's higher right now. It's a lot higher right now. That was 4 years ago. But there's as we know, there's a ebb and flow, and so we had to plan for staffing. So we planned for staffing, and our staffing. This is just we had to have a capacity. What's our capacity? And then we sort of split it up, and we had to figure out how many someone could do in an hour, and how many times it would take for case management, and so we had to predict that. Our current staffing is this 4.5 BTA staff, which equals 3. It's like 4.75 or something, because it's 3 full-time LCSWs, a CP3 who's sort of one of our psychologists wants to do this, and this technology allows her to do this because she can work from home using doing telephone triage. That's a plus. It allowed her to be at home when she had recently given birth, and to sort of extend a little bit of that time when she was with her newborn. We have some contract staff, and we have one of our postdocs, Dr. Tu here, just did a presentation, great presentation, and he was also our BTA, one of our BTA providers. So that's what we do. They do about 20 to 24 BTAs a week, each staff, and it's either a 20-minute or a 30-minute. So it's a 20-minute appointment. So you either do a 20-minute appointment, and then a 20-minute appointment, and a 20-minute, and then 30 minutes of case management, or you do a 20-minute and then a 10 minutes of case management, 20-minute, 10 minutes of case management. I really want my staff to be able to be flexible and how they work. So it's logistics. It's a little inside baseball kind of stuff, but yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if I should wait till the end, but this question in terms of what you're thinking,
Yeah.
are the telephone assessments better than the in-person assessments, or is there a difference? Like, would you
With the in-person, it typically takes more time. So with the in-person, we schedule 45 minutes over a 30-minute slot, because the telephone, most people are very amenable to doing a telephone assessment, and the actual interview, if you would, for the telephone for that assessment is about 20 minutes. If it's really complex, it will take the whole 30 minutes, and then you kind of have to, wind it down and then do your notes later. But with the in-person, who are very few, who actually want to do that, you do need to schedule more time. So they just take longer.
What do you attribute that to?
The student is there, there's crying, if they're upset, you have to acknowledge that. Sometimes you're able to do more in the in-person, like actually make the phone call if you're referring them off campus, help them schedule, give them some handouts. So it just kind of encompasses a little bit more. Sometimes it turns into that single session, which is kind of a bonus, because then they're taken care of. So it just turns into a little bit more, and sometimes we're on a little bit more case management side of that.
And sometimes maybe the self-selection of an in-person could make that, for reasons of why they selected an in-person, it could have been a more complicated issue or a more complicated person. But yeah, the outcomes of the BTA could be just a one and done. Sometimes it could be it's sometimes a wrong door. Oh, CAPS doesn't do this. Oh, so that's a nice thing. We'll get to that later. But there's some good benefits, because sometimes they'd wait for 3 weeks, and then you're like, well, actually, we don't do therapy dogs. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't do therapy dogs. I waited 3 weeks, so you did. Why didn't you tell me that? So I think it has uncovered some inefficiencies in our system and reduced and has improved some expectations. There's some downsides, and we'll talk about that. If you'd like to see our scope of services document, Justin, if you want to see it, he's our clinical coordinator of UCSC. Interested in that kind of stuff, but it's a document that I think was hard to deal with. It was hard to create. Who do we serve? What do we serve? It's not a hard and fast rule. We don't serve you. We serve you. We serve everybody, but we have to. We're so overwhelmed. We can't give 5 or 6 or 12 sessions to everybody who comes in. We have thousands and thousands of people and limited staff, and so it gives clear expectations. We call it a brief intermittent therapy. That's what we call it, and we don't have a session limit. So it's good and bad, but we don't have a session limit. But it's brief. So that's our little, Solomon-like decision there on that. But it helps to have a team, a small team. We have a small team who does the majority of our BTAs. So they all agree and are very clear about what the pitch is, what the scope of services is. So it prevents different staff from saying different things at the intake or at the first session, and it makes it more consistent. It's setting limits on our services, but which is not good, but we do have limits on our services, and it's helpful. It's a helpful document. But this made us do that. So how did we market this? We had to train all our CAP staff. We had to get all our CAP staff on board. Why is this good? What does this mean for you? We had to put it all on our website. We had to put it on parent orientation, new student orientation. But more importantly, I think our existing stakeholders had an expectation. Oh, wait, you mean you're going to make them call you first and then you're going to do the appointment? Boy, that sounds like a barrier. And so we have to frame it as improved access, because instead of waiting 3 weeks, they would wait 2 days, 1 day. We frame it as they can get their needs. Some of them can get their needs met quicker. And if they want a referral, our BTA staff will refer them. Because our SHIP the way, I think we're all in the same system that it needs to be authorized by us. So we need to authorize a referral. So the BTA team can write referrals. In fact, they write a lot of referrals, most of the referrals to providers. And so that's a benefit because, especially in the beginning of the year, what we found is when people are trying to establish care, especially graduate students who may have, our graduate students utilize SHIP a little bit more, and they're more savvy with mental health, and they want longer term care. They're going to be here for a while. They know what they need, and they don't want to go through another hoops. Okay, I got to wait for CAPS. I got to do a whole evaluation and then get care later. We can send them quickly, and we can. What we've done is we've front loaded our BTAs in the first few weeks. So we have a lot of them in the first few weeks. In fact, we've front loaded our BTAs in we schedule, you can schedule them if in the first week, but you can schedule them 2 weeks before. You can call in 2 weeks before and schedule a BTA. Sometimes we get people right now. I'm admitted to UCSD. I want to schedule an appointment with CAPS. I want to get that set up, and we can't see them for that until the first day of classes. But we start scheduling them early and front loading that. It helps with our flow, and then it helps our other staff do what they do best, which is treatment. And then we're going to have, we did some outcome measures. We measured, how did this work for the CAP staff? How did this work for the students? How did this work for wait times? Does it have any good or bad effects on initial, any other things, and what kind of referrals were people satisfied with it? So we're going to talk about that. So now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Mark.
All right. I'm not very good at this, so I think I'm just going to hold it if that's okay. Can you hear me okay? All right. So how do we do a BTA? So now I've got to do two things here. All right. So Jerry kind of talked about this earlier, but the procedure is that they call in, and the front staff basically quickly asks those two questions. Is this urgent, or is this for a standard appointment? So if they're saying it's a standard appointment, non-urgent, then they'll be scheduled with the BTA. Any high risk or urgent, I can't read this very well. Let's see. Here we go. We'll go to urgent care, or they're scheduled with the BTA. I think we've already gone over this. So let's go over the BTA part. The BTA so what we assess for. So basically, how we start off is we kind of frame what the session is going to be about. So we're going to take 15 or 20 minutes to talk to you about what your current situation is. So that way the student understands what this is about. We want to make sure that they understand what our scope of services are. So we either put that in the front part of our BTA, it depends on who's doing it, or somewhere in the context of this is what CAPS provides, brief intermittent therapy. It's really important to say those brief intermittent, because if someone is used to having weekly therapy sessions, they've been in treatment for 2 years, et cetera, that brief intermittent is going to kind of stick out to them, and meaning what we provide versus what they need. So that kind of sets the framework and the expectations of what CAPS can provide. We then go into what is the presenting problem. That sometimes can be challenging because some students want to say, when I was 6 years old, this, and that. So we really want to say, no, I want to know what's going on currently. And you really have to kind of guide them and redirect sometimes, because the students have never been able to tell their story, and this is their first time that they've talked to someone. So just reminding them that we're going to talk about what's going on now. In your session, the therapist will address that as appropriate, but I need to know what are we dealing with now. If they do have a history, that kind of starts to clue you in as to how you're going to direct them, what's going to be appropriate. If there is the history, if there's trauma, if there's past existing conditions, that is likely sounding like an off-campus referral. So you start to kind of get an idea right away of what direction you're going to be sending this student. The history goals. What is their goal for therapy? Is it just a place to talk about in process? Is it they're having some academic issues? And is it going to fit into the brief therapy model of whatever your service is? So it's important to kind of ask the student, what are your goals? Sometimes they don't know, as was mentioned in some of the single session, what that was earlier, they don't know. So, you know, you kind of, well, let's start here. But we also remind them that at any time during this period with CAPS, there may be a time where you might be sent to an off-campus provider. So we always kind of put that in there as an option so that there's an expectation should something arise during the initial evaluation and now the CAPS therapist feels that this is something addressed more in a longer term or more intensive treatment setting, they're going to be referred off campus so that they're not going to be caught off guard. So we do try to remind them that any time during their treatment with CAPS, there may be that possibility that they're going to need an off-campus referral. Student preference. So this is a time too to ask, hey, you know, who would you feel most comfortable with? And I always say we have a very diverse group of providers, and this may be your first time meeting with someone, or you have something very specific that you'd like to talk about. Do you have any preferences? And they'll say male, female is usually the first thing that comes up, or maybe someone who has or who I can identify with, you know, myself. And so we're able to make those choices or help them make those choices. We do often tell them too, though, that because you pick this one person, or you know, this person may be limited, are you open to other choices as well? So we do kind of have that conversation about overall what the choices are, more specifically who they might be a best match with, but also some of the limitations as far as maybe wait times may be a little bit longer, and just to give them that opportunity to make that choice. Let's see. Other needs, addressing if they're coming in for documentation, this might be a good opportunity to talk about what the policy is at your center, you know, and the expectations. So they might be coming in because they need OSD accommodations. We'll being able to tell them ahead of time, you may not get that at the first visit. You need to be in treatment, or the provider needs to do an assessment, just so that we're addressing, just so they know what the expectations are for getting documentation that they might need. Or we may not be able to provide that for you here at CAPS. I'm going to send you off campus. So that kind of thing. Let's see here. Sorry, I brought the wrong glasses. I'm going to go what to expect at an IE. Okay, so this is really important too for the first time. If a student this is their first time seeking therapy sessions, is what to expect. So at the initial evaluation, it's basically going to be a longer interview where that first session is going to be the provider getting to know you better. So they're going to be asking a lot more questions and talking about that therapeutic process where that one time may be enough for what you need, but you might need to come 3, 4, 5 more sessions. So kind of talking to them what to expect in therapy, especially for those who have never had it before. Or that the provider is going to further assess, maybe come up with a diagnosis that it fits better with them, and then from there make a decision as to whether the brief model will work for them or if they need to go off campus. A lot of times students have the expectation that during the BTA, they're going to get a diagnosis. You're going to tell me what's wrong with me. I need to know, am I depressed? Am I this? Am I that? And I kind of steer away from that because I don't think it's fair to say, I'm going to diagnose you over the phone in 15 minutes. And so I just have this discussion where that may or may not be appropriate. If they have a history, then it's likely that I am going to need to do that for an off-campus referral. But for those students who are just maybe coming for the first time and they're just kind of trying, I'd have that discussion with, that's what the evaluation is going to dive deeper into, is that diagnosis, if it's appropriate and if it's even warranted based on what they're coming in for. Let's see.
So I talked about BTA clinician provides a clinically appropriate, customized, and efficient referral too. So we will refer to either an IE, an initial evaluation, and we did change that from intake because that doesn't necessarily mean that they're coming into our system, that just that they're going to have a further evaluation. We can refer to urgent care. So if a student is in real crisis, maybe they're suicidal, they're psychotic, or they're really needing, we can tell them, you need to come in today. And what we'll do is let the urgent care provider know that the student is coming in, and most often we will follow up with that student to make sure that they went. So we kind of flag them to make sure that that student got to where they need to know, or we'll do some follow-up and find out where did they go, what's going on. They might be referred to one of our workshops or groups or a number of resources that we have online. Or both. Maybe they'll refer to an IE and the online tools or workshops. Those have been really helpful for when there's longer wait times. We'll kind of tell the student, hey, in the meantime, go to this group and learn some skills before you meet with your provider. And so that's been a really strong selling point in helping them to kind of hold that place while they're waiting for their appointments. The off-campus referrals are either to psychiatry, to psychotherapy, to IOPs, to specialty cares. The IOPs are usually more involved. They're usually already in treatment, and we're coordinating with their providers. But sometimes that's why they're calling. Is I have an off-campus provider. They recommended I do an IOP, and so at that time we'll be able to talk to that student, maybe get some information. If we need an ROI, we might need them to come in, or we can direct them to our website so that we can communicate with that off-campus provider about the IOP if they need that, or any kind of specialty care. Maybe we might have to come in first. Out of all those little things, but all that can happen in the BTA with the off-campus referrals, especially for students who have existing mental health conditions and they're coming to campus for the first time. They have a provider in Riverside, but they need one here. So it's a real easy jump here and then jump there and then go on to continue your care in San Diego or wherever they are. Then the other referrals are, maybe they need to see an academic advisor. Maybe they really should be connected to the dean's office. Maybe they need OSD, so et cetera. We will make those connections as they need them. So the BTA also provides case management services for, like I said, off-campus referrals, including follow-ups and renewals. So if we do a BTA for someone and they need to renew after a year, they can call us, they can message us, because oftentimes they have our information, already in their portal, and they'll message and say, hey, I need a renewal. And so we can get the stuff we need to just renew, and it's really easy. Or they need some other kind of, they're calling directly for the off-campus referral before they even saw a CAPS provider because they're coming from somewhere else. We do some limited documentation that would most likely be in person, and that just really depends on what they're coming for. I say limited because the documentation can be really tricky depending on what they're wanting it for. Conjoined treatment plans to support bridge care. So there are times where we're recommending bridge care, in that they might meet with one of our providers until they're set up with an off-campus provider. So the BTA team, mostly our LCSWs, have agreed to, we're going to set up a case management meeting with the student while they're doing bridge care with the psychologist, and that way we can set up the end of the bridge where we actually help the student with the off-campus provider. Maybe their appointment is 6 weeks out, and in the meantime they're meeting with a CAP provider until they can get to that appointment. So we want to assure that they are doing that and not putting all of that on the psychologist when they're just doing the bridge care, because then we're just kind of spreading them around. So we want to do it together with our CAPS providers so that we're assured that the student is in fact set up with an off-campus provider. And there's a lot of little complications that can come about if the student doesn't have SHIP. So that's why our LCSW team is involved with this bridge care kind of triad. Let's see. Setting boundaries. When we do the case management, and if they are going to be seeing a CAPS psychologist, say, or the treating provider, want to make sure we set boundaries between I'm doing case management, your provider is doing treatment. So that needs to be a strong communication and goal setting between the provider, the case manager, and the student. Risk assessment, sometimes has to be part of the case management appointment because the student may be high risk, so we're going to be checking for that when they come in. And then coordinating care with campus resources and off-campus providers if we're doing the case management, but we're sending them off campus for some reason. And that usually is when we're working with our health systems, in our case, our UCSD partners that are off campus. Yeah.
It's just in a matter of, for
Time,
time. Thanks, Irma. We're gonna move through, we do have a really great script for addressing resistance if you want. It was created by Dorian Bassan, one of our providers. But I want to just talk about what happened. So we did this whole thing. We thought it was really cool. Did it work? Did it do anything? What happened? Well, enrollment really grew. So it's a bad slide, but we actually made a mistake. Our registrar made a mistake. 2,000 more students just happened to get admitted than we expected. It happened again another year. We don't think that was a mistake. We didn't get any extra staff. But did they stop coming to CAPS? No, they didn't. They just kept coming. And so if you can see, this doesn't get 18 and 19, or 17 and 18, but our students served went up. It just went up. This is a too complicated a slide, but our unique clients just continued to grow. Our staff was flat, and it's both our enrollment went up and higher percentage of students sought care, just that what you're seeking. But what about our BTAs? What happened? Well, we saw the first year 2,100, second year 2,300, and this year 2,500 BTAs. So that's a lot of people we served. We did a lot of BTAs, and our referrals off campus increased. And so this is BTAs to IE and BTAs to off campus. This is from our disposition. I don't know if you're in CAPS, there's a little disposition box. You can report that with P&C. And so it's actually quite surprising how many referrals off campus we did this year. I think we had a little challenges. We had some challenges this year with wait times, and I think that's one of the reasons. But here's the cool slide that I like. It made us more efficient. So so the red part is pre-BTA, and then the next is post-BTA. So the total numbers of the total is the total numbers of IEs. And then the percent is a percent of enrollment. So our percent of IEs went down. Our absolute number was kind of around 1,900. But we saved a lot of IEs. So not only did we not do those IEs and we referred them, but those IEs would have been referred off campus anyway. So they got referred more efficiently. Our staff didn't have to do that. Our clinicians didn't have to do it. Our staff had to do it, but our clinicians didn't have to do it. And I think it made a higher percentage of the clients that got referred to IE were appropriate for the service. So I think that's a real key point. As a clinician, the people I'm getting, they're prepared. They know, they've gotten great preparation. They know what to expect. They know what to expect in therapy. They know what's going to happen. We get a little note right beforehand. Here's what the presenting issue is. We can really start the running and start working right off the bat. We can do our evaluation more quickly and really start interventions. So I think it's a more appropriate client for us. And then it's a better match. The red line was the projections, and then the blue line, you can see the first year we did it, our initial evaluations went down. So what happens to crisis visits? Well, maybe more people went to urgent care. But the interesting thing is our crisis, it's a complicated slide again, but our crisis services went down. So this is walk-in, walk-in plus as a percentage of enrollment, phone, and total as a percentage of enrollment. So if you predict as a percentage, like 2.8, which was the average of 2.6 to 3.2, well, that's 2.9 anyway, about 2.8, you get a total of projection, but the percentage of urgent care walk-ins went down. So we were going like this in our urgent care walk-ins, and they went like this when we did our BTA system. It was a really interesting systemic result I was hoping to have happen, and we think that is because people didn't wait as long. People got service. They didn't come in, and our crisis clients are more appropriate. They're not people who are just trying to go around and say, yeah, I've got a crisis, I just don't want to wait, for your appointment. But truly, we think some of them did not wait some of them used to become in crisis, and now they get to talk to somebody in 2 days. They get to talk to Irma in 2 days and say, hey, here's what's going on, and she can talk to them, provide some reassurance, or Ming, they'll give them some referrals, and I think that can really help. What about serious events? What about really serious events, like hospitalizations? Well, another really super complicated slide from our annual report, but this is a total of our hospital evaluations in the emergency department, hospital admissions blue, and total hospital incidents. And this is per 100,000. And it continued to go up. So our hospital incidents did continue to go up. So people who were in crisis, who had psychoses, they continued to come. And so it didn't really, affect them. But what it did affect was our suicide incidents, our suicide threats, our suicide attempts. Now this could be just a matter of, correlation, but this is the year that we did the BTA system, these 2 years, and you see that it went flat. This is per 100,000. So our enrollments continue to go up like this, but our suicide incidents, for some reason, kind of went flat. And I think it's a combination of people were crying out for help before because they couldn't talk to anybody, and they asked for help from us. They couldn't talk to anybody, and then it kind of turned into suicide risk. This is the bad outcome, the super bad outcome. This is our completed suicides that we can report on per 100,000, and it stayed between 8, 7, 7, and 6%. So it's that's below the predicted national average. I think is around 7 per 100,000, 8 per 100,000 for college-age students, and so we're still lower than that. Did it affect counseling appointments? Yes, it did. Our counseling appointments went down. Did it affect student satisfaction? So this is not a great slide because this is 2016, 17, and that's 2015, 16. So if you just think about it, it's the wrong way. So this is time going this way. So our student satisfaction went up with appointments, and our satisfaction went down, dissatisfaction went up. Did I say something really funny? I don't know if I hope it was funny. I hope it wasn't okay. Was I able to have my follow-up appointments? Same thing. Satisfaction was better. Did I feel satisfied with the services I received? Now, some people would say, you're going to do this BTA thing, you're going to refer a bunch of people off campus, our satisfaction with services is going to go down because they're just going to get this phone thing, and they're just going to get sent off. Our satisfaction went up. It stayed up. This is just the first 2 years, but it has gone up. Now, so here's the highlights: significant reduction in urgent care, reduction in wait times for initial contact, increase in overall students served, but a reduction in initial evaluations. And our no-show cancellation rate went down. I think it was because of our wait time was better, but I think it might have been also because we had more appropriate expectations for services. So here's some advantages. I'm going to talk about some advantages, and I'm going to talk about some disadvantages. But we've talked about this already: more rapid access to services, increased sensitivity to crisis. So she talked about referring people to crisis. We actually have done safety welfare checks, a couple welfare checks a year through BTA. So I think we're more sensitive in that way because we're more responsive. And all the wait time thing, the staff who refer are more competent or qualified or trained. This is what Irma and their team does a lot. And so they can do that really well. They know the referral instances, they know the referrals, they know who's open, they know that system, so they do it more easily, and rather than a clinician saying, "Oh, you got to get a referral? Okay. So I wonder who's open, and I got to send that email, and I got to do this thing." And so I think it helps our clinicians too. More efficient use of services and our use of telephone, remote work, it has helped us. We're really pinched in terms of space, all those students, all those things. They're not building any more buildings for a while. They're building them, it's going to be like 3 or 4 years. So we had a space problem. So this has helped us. I offered all of our staff, our PTA staff, you can work 2 days from home, and 3 of them took me up on it. And so they're doing their BTAs from home. And we have a secure way of doing that, and it allows us to do clinical work from home. So see the telemental health, yay, telemental health. And then we can do that referred to other step care and all those things. If it's a wrong door, better blah, 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 blah. So what are the challenges? So here's the challenges. Our policies, we needed to sort of evolve them. We created these policies. I used some policies from UT Austin. Our staff really helped with this, but we did have some students who complained they didn't feel they got enough assistance in accessing a referral, but that's always been the case. So we're really focusing. We've been focusing on improving our referral experience. We have a referral experience survey now. We assess that. Sometimes referring high-risk, the main issue is referring our high-risk students off campus we haven't physically seen them. That sometimes feels a little challenging, but we can do bridge care. We can bring them in. We can assist them with that referral. The most challenging part of this was our deans of students affairs, who are principal administrators in our unit, they said, "Well, you're referring all our students of concern off campus. Wait. We want the flip. We want you to refer all those low, the brief intermittent people off campus and take the high-risk people here." That's not the way insurance works. That's not the way we work. So that's not what we can do. But what we can do is we can educate our referrals resources on all our resources. So we made ROIs. We to give to all the providers that provide our services. We put our ROIs online. We're trying to educate our off-campus providers about all our UCSD resources, so that if they can call the dean if they have an release of information, they can refer to disability services and like that. So, but some of our deans are still a little skeptical. So we beefed up here's our BTAs. Here's where we are right now. This is right about now. This is why we're having this conference right here, right? Because we don't have much demand for our services. But our services ramp way up in the beginning of the year, and then the end of the quarter they stop in winter. Whoa, winter, and then so it's an evolving thing. But we can plan for that. So we planned a lot in the first quarter, and I think I said that. I said all that. So we're almost. This is my last slide. Our goal is to improve the BTA experience for staff and students, and we're going to fold in a brief single session model as one of our options, and we're going to continue the BTA service as and fold that in as an option. We're going to be we're going to improve the referral experience, and we're going to try to improve our matching of clients with student needs. And it's a work in progress, but we think that it really saved us because, well, truth be told, the quarter before we started the BTA service, I took over our assistant clinical director job running our urgent care service, and I was totally burned out. And I said, we got to change something. And everybody was like, yeah, we got to change something. All our staff are burned out. So it has really helped our staff morale. It's helped our students. And if you want more information on this, please get back to me or Irma. We'd be happy to talk to you after this session or at any time. We'd be happy to share our hard-fought procedures or policies and work with you now. We are out of time, I'm sorry, but I'll take a question or two if you have any.